Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. So in the previous video we learned about list. We learned a lot of things, but still there are a lot of things to be completed in list. So today is the continuation of the previous video. We'll learn something more about list. So as I tell in the last class, that list is all about like a basket where you can put different type of things. We have learned accessing, appending, inserting, how to pop, slicing, and I hope you understood all of them. If you have any problem, put it in the comment. I'll try to explain it once again. Today we'll be learning a little bit more about list. So the topic that we'll be learning is how do we get the length of a list? How do we remove an item? We have already learned how do we remove using pop, but there is one more thing. There is also one more function how to remove. We'll learn how to delete. We'll learn how to what is clear, what is index, what is count, copy, enumerate, extend, zip, list, comprehension. So there are a lot of topics. Let's get started. So first, let me comment on all of this. We'll be starting with length of list. So let me construct a list. So let's construct a list called ARR where it's 1 2 3 4 5 6. So this is a list. Okay, it's ARR is a list with where there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 integer in a list. Now how do you know what is the length of this? So to know the length of a list, there is a function called len. Okay, what does len does? Len takes the list as an argument of it. So when you passed ARR inside a list, then this will return what is the length of this list. So now if you print let's put in F string, the length of ARR, then we can just put length. So this is just an F string. I've already told you what F string is and how it works. Now if you run this, just run python 06 or only that py, you can see the length of ARR is 6. Why is 6? If you see, it's 1 1 2 3 4 5 6. So it does not start with how the indexing works. Like indexing works in taking 0 as the first parameter. It does not work that way. It will just give how we count items. It starts from 1 and see. So that is how we can get the length of an array. So using the len property. So that was our first one, length. Now how do we remove an item? We already know when we do arr.pop, it will remove the last element of the. Suppose if we do this and now if we print arr, it will remove this 6. So let's run this. If you see, the 6 is removed. And we also learn that if you pass the index, it will remove the index. So suppose if you pass pop of 0, then it won't remove 6, but it will remove that 1. If you see, the 1 is missing from here. But there is also one more thing. Suppose you wanted to remove an item, you don't know what is the index. Suppose it's a long list, so you wanted to remove the first item from it. Suppose you want to remove this 3. Okay, you know you want to remove 3, but you don't know what is the index of this 3. So there you can use remove. How do you use? Same like pop, arr dot remove, and just pass the number. Okay, this is not an index. Let's put a comment here 3 is not an index but an element. So here this 3 is not an index. Okay, how we pass here, and here 0 is the index. So this is the difference between pop and remove. In remove, we pass the element directly that we wanted to remove. So let's comment this out and just print out this arr. Now you see this 3 will be removed from this list. Okay, let's save this and run. If you see, now there is no 3, it's 1 2 4 5 6. But this has a problem, since now suppose we want to remove 30. Now you know 30 is not part of this list, right? If you try to remove 30 and it's not, it will throw an error. So let's run this. If you see, it throws a value error since x is not in the list. Since 30 is not in the list, right? So you can't remove the 30. So this is one of the caveat of this remove. You need to pass the element that is already there. If it's not there, it will throw an error. So this is very important. So you need to know that whatever element you are trying to remove, that element should be in the list. You cannot put any element that is not part of the list here, and because that will throw an error. So that is one thing. Now let's go to another topic number 3. We're going through this one by one. Since it's a long, you see it's an element list, right? So we need to complete in time. So we're going to do it faster way. But anyway, if you face any difficulty, just put in the comment. I'll try to solve each and every one of them. So what delete works is, suppose this is a list. Okay, this array is a list. Let's comment this out and put this here so you can see it properly. So this array is a list, right? Suppose you wanted to delete an item, so you wanted to delete this too, you can do using remove, and in there you can pass the element or you can use pop. But what if you want to remove a certain like range of it, like you want to remove 2 3 4 at the same time? So you don't have to use something like remove and put a number one by one. What you can do is you can delete, put an arr and just put the slicing of it. Suppose you want to remove 1 and 2. So you know that how slicing works. The first is included but the last is not included. So for this delete, what it will do, it will take 2 and since it's indexing, it starts from 0, right? So the indexing starts from 0. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. So what will take, it will take 1, that is 2, it will take 2, that is 3, but it won't take this 4 because this is the last index, right? And last index is already excluded. Now if you run this arr, let's comment this out since this is not part of syntax. Run this. Okay, let's run it here. If you see, it's 1 4 5 6. The whole array was 1 2 3 4 5 6, but now here 2 and 3 got removed since we deleted it. In remove, we remove one item at a time, but if you want to remove many items at a time using slicing, you can use this delete operator. It's del, put the array and put the slicing. This also works how remove works, right? Instead of remove, you can use this by just putting the, suppose you want to remove the first element, so you do this, and so what this will do, this will remove the first element. So here the 0 is an index. Okay, this is index, how in slicing index work. In the previous class we have learned about slicing. Go to the previous class if you have any difficulties. So now if you run this, the first one element should get removed, that is 1 should get removed from the list. If you see, there is no 1 in the list, it starts from 2 up to 6, that is 1. Now suppose you want to remove all the element, you can do using delete. I've already said you, if you don't pass any element, right, if in the slicing, if you don't do like this, so this text starts to end and it will remove everything. If you print here arr, and let's comment this out. So if you see, it's an empty list. Since we said like if start and end is not given, it will take the complete list. But if you don't want to use the delete, since it will be confusing, you can use something called clear. How do you use it? Just arr dot clear. Now if you print this arr, right, okay, let's print it before and after. Print, let's put it before arr, and let's copy this, paste here and say after. Okay, so before this was there, and after is this one, so that you can see that what we are doing makes sense. If you see, before it was 1 2 3 4 5 6, but when you use clear, right, just like delete, we can use, in delete we can put this slicing of start and end to be empty, then just delete everything. But this looks more clear because you'll understand, right? It makes more sense that clear means just to clear out everything. So you can use arr.clear when you wanted to remove all the elements from a list. So you can use arr.clear, or what this arr is the name of the list. Okay, you can use any name, but we are using arr so that if you are coming from different programming language, you may be understanding what's array. So that it looks a little bit similar to that array. That's why I'm putting an arr so that it makes understanding easier. So that was clear. Now earlier I said like when you wanted to remove an item, right, and you want to remove an, because you don't know the index. But suppose you wanted to know the index, so let me copy this and put it here. Let's uncomment this. Suppose you wanted to know what is the index of this 2. Okay, so knowing that is very easy. You can do index equals arr dot index of 2. Now if you print, let's put in f string, the index of 2 is index. So what is the index? I already said you index starts from 0. So the index of 2 should be 1 because this is 0, this is 1 2 3 4 5. So the index of 2 should be 1 according to us. Let's see what this prints. If you see, it's correct. The index of 2 is 1. Yes, that is correct. But this index has one more problem. So if you do index equals to arr dot index of 100, since 100 is not part of the list, right? So just like remove, if it is not part of a list, it will always throw an error. Now if you print this index, you see this will throw an error. See, the previous one worked, that index of 2 is 1, but second will throw an error. Why? Because 1000 is not in the list. So if you are using index, this number should be in the list. So 1000 should be in the list to work. So to work, right, for to find the index, that number should be in the list so that we know the index. So it makes sense also. If a number is not in the list, how can you find what is the index of it? So if you wanted to find index of any number, make sure that number is in the list. Okay, that is what index is. Now let's go one more thing, what count. Okay, let's create a new array here, since count will become a little bit easier when we make a new array. So let's create new array called 1 2 1 3 4 4 4. Okay, so there are 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 elements. So now if you wanted to know how many time 1 appeared, how many time 2 appeared and all that, then you can use the count operator. So you can see like count equals arr dot count, and you pass the number whom you want to know the count of. So you want to know the what is the count of 1. Now if you print here the count of the number of times 1 appear in the list is count. So suppose you wanted to know how many times this number appears in the list. Okay, the number of times 1 appear in the list. So you wanted to know how many times this 1 appear in this list. So what you can do, you can use this count function. You can just put the name of the array dot count and put the number here. Here 1 is not index. Here 1 is not index, but the element here 1 is not index. Okay, it's an element that you wanted to see. So now if you run this, you can see the number of time 1 appear in the list is 2. Why 2? Because if you see here 1, here 1, and there is also one more time 1, and but there are 4 3 times, right? So let's count for this 4. Count of 4. Put this here 4. Number of times it appears is 4, and here count of 4. Okay, so let's bring this here. Now you can see properly. So now we want to know how many times 4. If you see 4 appears 3 times. Let's see if this gives 3 or different. If you see the number of times 4 appear in the list is 3, that means it's correct. Here also, now suppose you want to do for something that does not exist, so this will not throw an error. Okay, since count means what? How many times a number appear? A number can appear 0 times, right? That is a valid count. Suppose you wanted to see how many times 100 appear. In the list there is no 100, that is clear, I guess. So how many times 100 appears? So we can write here 100. How many times 100 appear? Now if you run this, if you see the number of times 100 appear in the list is 0. Why? Because there is no 100 in the count in the list that we made, right? So that makes sense. Here we won't be it's okay, not this. Let's remove this. Okay, why does it work and not throw an error? Because here we know count can start from 0, right? It can't throw an error if there is nothing in the list. Suppose in a basket there are potato and onion, but there are no chilies, but you can say there are 0 chilies, right? But if you wanted to remove from a basket where there is no chili, that is not possible since there is no chilies. So this throws no error, it will just give you the count. So that is how count works. Now let's go one more very important topic, that is copy. Copy is very important. Okay, and to understand this we need 2 arrays. Why? I'll say you. Suppose this is one array and this is 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, it will work with one array also, but let's do 2 array, and there is 2 array AR2 that is taking ARR. What we are doing is we are creating one array called ARR1 and we are putting 1 3 4 5, and we are getting one more ARR2 where we are putting all the elements of ARR1. Now if you print both of them, what should it print? It should print the same, right? Because they are the same things. ARR1 print ARR2. Now if you run this, If you see, it makes sense in how we see, right? If you wanted to copy something, just assign the same thing on the different variable. Here the variable is ARR1, here the variable is ARR2, and we assign whatever is in ARR1 put in ARR2. But there is one problem in this. What? Let me show you. So suppose we do here ARR2, right? In the 2, if you change the first element, we know how to change. We can put the index and change. Suppose we made it 100. Now if you print both of them, right? And let's save this and run this. See, for both of them it got changed. So okay, let's put a print statement of here for separating it out. Yes, you can see for the first time they were same because we copied ARR2 1 in ARR2, but second time we just changed the value of ARR2. We did not touch ARR1. So ARR1 should be like what 1 2 3 4 5 is, right? But if you see, both of them got changed. So this is a very important thing. So you need to always keep in mind when you copy something, right? When you assign the same thing to other, they reference the same thing. Here, though they look like different variable AR1, AR2, but we are both pointing to same list, right? AR1 is pointing to this, AR2 is pointing to AR1, which is pointing to this. So they both have the same list as reference. So to overcome this, there is a method called copy. So now, if you don't want to do this, so there is one more thing you can do. That is, suppose let's make it ARR3. What you can do is you can put ARR1 dot copy. What this will do, this will not just put what is in ARR1 in ARR3, but it will make a copy of ARR1, separate copy in a different memory, and put it in ARR3, so that they are pointing to two different things. Now if you print ARR3, let's print ARR1 also. Let's print both three of them, okay, so that you can see what I'm trying to say. So now there are three variables. One is ARR1 that has directly a list. ARR2 makes asks the ARR1 to be the same of it. Means whatever is in ARR1, just assign it to ARR2. But in ARR3, what we did, we made a copy of ARR1, then put it in ARR3. Now if you run this, all of them should be same, right? ARR1 is this, 2 is this, 3 is this. And previously we saw when we made a change in ARR2, it also reflected the change in ARR1. So let's see if that happens this time also. So let's bring this here, ARR2, and make it 100. Now if you run this, if you see, the change happened in ARR1 and ARR2 but not in ARR3. Why? Because ARR2 took a direct assignment of ARR1, but ARR3, what did it do? It made a copy of ARR1. So if you make any change in ARR3, it will not reflect in 1 and 2. But if you make any change in ARR1 or 2, it will reflect to both of them, since they are referencing the same items. The list is same for both of them. But in ARR3, it's a different list, since we copied it and put in a different memory and put it in ARR3. So you can see here, if you even make a change in ARR3, right? ARR3 of 1 equals to 55. This will only change in ARR3, but it won't change for ARR1 and ARR2. Since ARR1 and ARR2 is making a reference to same list, but ARR3 is making a reference to a different list. So this is very important when we are dealing with list, okay? So when you assign a different list to a different variable, be careful that if you change anything on this second or first one, both of them will change. So whenever you wanted to do that, just make a copy of it so that it does not change the original list or when you change the ARR3. So this is very important. Okay, just learn it a bit more clearly. So if you are facing difficulty in any of this line, okay, just comment it out. I'll try to solve it. But I think it should be clear by now. And I showed you the example, like what are the things that get changed. Okay, so this was about copy. Hi everyone, so this is me from the future, just watching the videos, and I thought that I missed one important part here. So on this copy, right, to know that they are not of the same and they are of the same, what you can do, you can just print out the ID. So every variable is assigned an id to know like where they are situated. So if you do an id, right, print of id1 and run this, you can see you'll get a number like this. So what you can do, you can print for both of them, for arr1 and arr2, and if you run them, you see both of them have the same number. If it's the n number, right, mostly if by looking the n5 number you will know they are same or not same. 946304, 946304, so they are same. But when you print it for id of 3, right, of arr3, you'll see this is not same like the other. If you see the number last, right, is 6096, but it's not same like other. So by looking at the id, you can say like they're not referencing the same thing. So this is one of the way where you can say like if both of the array are they the same thing, will changing one will change the other. So you can just look at the id of them and see if they are the same thing. If they are the same, then you know that if you change one of them, the other will change. But if the id is different, you know that this is not related to anyone, so it's not dependent on anyone, or no one is dependent on it. So that is how you can do this. So yeah, I just wanted to say you this. So continue on the video. Thank you. Now let's go to one more thing called enumerate. So enumerate is very useful. Suppose there is an array, okay, arr1, and we say 1, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now we know we can for loop in it, right? I've said in the previous class also we can do for loop in for number in array. We can print the number, right? I hope you know this. We have learned about for loop. We have learned how we do for loop in list. So we get 1, 6, 8, 10 and 12. But what if we wanted to know what is the index also? Generally we know what the index is. For us it's very easy to know the index. We know first index is 0, then it's 1, then it's 2, then it's 3, then it's 4. But how do you print that index? So to print that index, what you can do is, in a for loop, you can add for index number. So you need to print two things in enumerate of arr. So you need to use this function called enumerate. So I'll show you one, give me 1 second. So how this works is, so this enumerate function, right, it takes all the element of this array, and for every array it will assign a variable and the number in one tuple. We'll talk about tuple in the later part of the next video. So what it does is it binds these two things together and gives you. So you can just say the first number what will be coming from here is called index, and the second that will be coming is called number. Okay, but if you want to see how it actually looks like, let me show you. For in enumerate, this is tuple, okay, tuple in enumerate arr print tuple. Let me comment this and run this once again. Enumerate is not defined. Did you mean okay, the spelling is wrong. It's enumerate, at. So let's run this once again. So you see what it does is, first time when we printed, it printed the 1, 6, 8, 10, because in the 4 we did not do anything. But in enumerate, what it does is, for every number, right, it prints the index also together. So for the 1 it's 0, for 6 it's 1, for 8 it's 2, for 10 it's 3, for 12 it's 4. When we learn about tuple, I'll show you how this works, okay. But for now, you see they're just they put in a small basket. In every basket there are two items. The first is the index, second is the element. So the element are 1, 6, 8, 10, 12. You can see 1, 6, 8, 10, 12, and the first one is the index. So if you wanted to separate them out, right, then you can use two variables and it will just separate out in the two variables. So I said, right, in the first element is in this tuple, the first element is the index. So you can write index, second is the number, and put in the enumerate an array. Now if you run this, understand triple literal unterminate triple, okay, there is, okay, got it. Let's see if this works. Yeah, now you can see this is the index, this is the element. So in the first one, when you do for loop, it will just give you the element. But if you wanted to get an index, you can use this enumerate. In the enumerate, you will get the index also and the number also. And if you wanted to index, use the index in some property, like if index is 0, then do something, then you can use this. Okay, this is how it works. I hope you got this enumerate. This is also useful because sometimes you wanted to know the index while you go in a for loop. Okay, this was about enumerate. Now let's look at something called extend. So okay, there is one list. Suppose this is one list. Okay, arr is equals to 1 2 3 4 5, and there is one more list called arr2 that has variable called 100 200. These are the items. Now if you wanted this arr2, right, to be part of arr1, so you want that it should be 1 2 3 4 5, then it should be 100 200, means you wanted to add this 100 and 200 in this list. So there are two possible ways. One is you create a third array and you say arr plus arr2. Okay, now if you print this arr3 and if you run this, you should be getting 1 2 3 4 5 100 and 200 in the same list. But you don't want to do this. You want it to be in the same array of arr1. So how you can do this is you can just use the extend property. So how this works is you do arr dot extend, then put arr2. Inside the extend you put the list that you wanted to extend in this first array, right? In this array, whatever list you wanted to put, this arr2 should be that list. Now if you print arr and run this, you should see you should be having the same thing. You should get 100 and 200 in part of arr. So you don't have to create the third variable called arr3. So that is how extend work. Extend means just extending a list so that you can accumulate some more elements of other list to the same list. So that is how extend works. Now let's go to the second one called zip. So this is the last second. After this we have list comprehension, that is very useful, and zip is also very useful. I'll show you how. So suppose there are two array. Okay, arr1 is 1 2 5 6 7, and there is one more array called arr2 that has element called 3 4 5. Okay, now you wanted to loop over them in the same time. So you wanted to loop over them in the same time. So let's make it the same. I'll show you what is the difference we get when we don't have same. So you wanted to loop over them in the same time. If you use for loop, you can use in a list, right? You can use for loop in this list and this list. But what if you wanted to list them, loop over them in the same time? So how you can do them is using zip. So you can say for num1 num2. Since if you club them together, you will be getting two numbers from different lists, right? You can do zip arr1 arr2. So it works how enumerate works, like it forms a tuple and it gives you two number. Here also when you use zip, right, it will take two of them and it will form a tuple of this element. So it will take 1 and 3 together, 2 and 4 together and work. So now what you can do, you can just print out them and do print num1 num2. Now if you run this, you should be getting 1 3 2 4 5 5 6 9 7 10. So it make the same index comes together. So for the first one 0 index, it's 0 1 and 3 for 2 array, right? So that is how zip works. It's the same thing how tuple works. Okay, in the enumerate you saw like it forms a tuple where it forms index and number in the same time. So in the zip also it will take two array, two list or any number of list, and yeah, you can use any number of list. Okay, you can put 4 5 list and just increase the number of variables here. So this variable will take the number from that list and you can print them. But what if the lists are not same? If the lists are not same, it will take the shortest list. So let's create one more array called arr3 that has only two variable 100 and 200. Now if you run arr3, now if you do for num1 num2 in zip arr2 and arr3. Now in arr2 there are 5 numbers, but in arr3 there are only 2 numbers. So now if you do this, it will just print 2 numbers because it will take the shortest length. Since after 2 it won't be having forming, it can't have any numbers, right? So it will take the shortest one and you'll be getting the shortest one in format. So let me comment out this so that you can see what is the answer. You can see there are only 2. Why only 2 and why not 5 900? Because they can't form a tuple among them, right? So there are no third index for it. So whenever you use zip, just know that it will always take the shortest list and it will form a shortest list coupling so that you will get the only the number of element that is in the shortest. So that is how zip works. This is also very useful when you want to run a loop in the same time and you want to get both of the number of different list. So this was about zip. Now come a very important topic, and it's very useful also, called list comprehension. So this is a little bit as you start using Python, right, this will become very useful. But let's start with small talk. I'll give you a small example of it, but that should get you started. So suppose we wanted to get a square of a number. Okay, we want to get square of 0 to 10. So how we can do it? We can do using the range. I said about range, right? In the for loop you can use range, and if you pass any number, it will go from 0 to up to that number. So suppose you need for I in range 10. So what this will do is, it will go from number 0 up to 9 in this I, that the value of I will be this. So you can do square dot append. I said append means what? Append means taking a number and putting in a list. So it putting in the end of the list. So first the list is empty. So first whatever you append here, it will just put it inside this list. So what we'll do, we'll put I into I, since we know the square means the number multiplied by the same number. Now if you print square, so what should this print? They should print the square of all the numbers. So it should print 0, 1, 4, 9 and like this. Okay, let's run this and see if what we said is correct. If you see, yes, this is what it prints. It prints 0, 1, 4, 9, 16 up to 81. Since 9 plus 9 is 81, it does not print 10 because I said whatever the number you put, it will just go n minus 1, considering here the n is 10. So this can be done in different way in Python. That is where the list comprehension comes into play. So what you can do, you can directly write square. Why am I writing square always wrong? So what you can do, you can form a list and you can put the for loop here itself. You can do for I in range 10. So you can put the loop itself inside the array, and first you need to define what you wanted to do with this I. So if you see, both of them are almost similar. You put the for loop here, and in the beginning what you say, whatever the value of I is, just cross it with it, the same thing. And if you print this number, right, if you print it, you should be getting same thing that you got in the previous one. So if you run this, see, you got the same thing, 0, 1, 4, 9, 16 up to 81. So this is what is called list comprehension, where you can use for loop and other looping inside this list itself. So let's do one more thing so that you can understand. Suppose we wanted to get only the even number from this for loop. So what we can do, even, suppose we wanted to get the value of I, for I in range 10. Okay, so just pause for a minute and think what will be the answer of this even. Just see the previous one and just try to say like what will be coming in this when we print this even, like what will be getting the answer. Take a minute. So now let's run and see. If you have figured it out, that's very important, because this is very good also, since you're understanding the list comprehension better way, and it's very important to learn this list comprehension. As you start learning, right, advanced topic, list comprehension will be very useful for you. So now if you see, it printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, but these are not even, right? So now to get the even number, what we do is we put an if clause here. So we can write if I%2 is equals to 0. So we have already learned what this percentage symbol does, right? It's a reminder, and we know for an even number to be 0, the reminder should be 0 when it's divisible by 2. If a number is divisible by 2, then only it's an even number. Now let's print this. If you see, we get 2, 4, 6 and 8. We don't get the number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all we are getting, because now we have an if clause. So how this works is, first it will take the for loop, then for the first, suppose it's 0, so it will take the 0 and put it here and see, is 0% 2 equals to 0? Yes, then it will comes to I. But if you say now how do we use else? For else, the structure will change a bit. So what we can do is, we can write here even. Let's make it one more time the same thing, so that you know how to use it. So here the if clause will not be here, but it will be coming here, because we wanted the else also, and we put the else. So now this will work how it's supposed to work. So first it will say, it will go through this loop I. It will say if I percentage by 2 is equals to 0, yes. If it's yes, then it will print this I. But if it's not, this no will get printed. So let's see if that is how it works. If you see, yes, for every odd number the no is getting printed, but for every even number the number is getting printed. So that is what a list comprehension is. So list comprehension will be used in many other things, so you can use function and all that. When we'll be learning about map, lambda and all that, we'll be using list comprehension in a better way. But for now you just need to understand that for forming a list we can use for loop, if else directly inside a list. We don't have to use this for loop in a separate way like how we did for this square. We can use directly inside the list itself, so that we can construct a list directly in a single line. That is what list comprehension is. List comprehension just makes life easier by putting it in the same line, so you don't have to create 2-3 lines for the small purpose like making a list and all that. You can use using list comprehension. So that was it about list comprehension, and I think that is more or less what we wanted to do in this class. So let me repeat once again what we did. First is the length of a list. So to use length of a list, what we can do is just put the len function. The len function, it takes as an argument, it will take the list and give you what is the length. So the length will be how we count in the general number. It won't be starting from 0, it will just start from 1. Second, we learned about remove item. We already know how pop works, but there is also one more called remove. Here we don't pass the index, but we put in the number. But there is a caveat here that when we pass a number that is not in the list, it will throw an error. Then we learned about delete. Delete also works like how the remove works, right? But here we can remove directly a slice of a list with just doing one by one at a time. Then if you want to remove all of them, we can do using delete using this, but we also have a more cleaner function called clear, where we can use and it will remove all the elements in the list. Then if you wanted to know the index of an element, we can use the index property. So for this, what happens is the number should be in the list. If it's not in the list, then it won't work. We have already added one example here, so that we can run this. The sixth one is if you wanted to know what is the count of a number. So for a count, the elements can or cannot be in a list. That does not impact it, because the count can be 0. Suppose we saw here, when we use 100, it gives the count as 0, because although the 100 is not in part of the list. Then we learned about copy. We said that if you assign an array to a different variable, though both of the arrays will have the same element, and changing one will impact the original one. So if you wanted to copy, you can use the copy function. In this way, changing a value of ARR3 won't impact the ARR1 and ARR2 that are referencing the same list. Then we learn about enumerate. What enumerate does is, when we wanted to know the index of an element when we're using a for loop. So when we run a basic for loop, we get the number, but we don't get the index. So if you wanted to use the index, we can use something called enumerate. So what enumerate does is, it form a tuple that we'll be learning in the next class. So in this way, you can get the index and number using enumerate. Then we learn about extend. What extend does is, if you wanted to extend a list and put the element of other list in the same list, you can do using this plus function, but plus function will need to create a new array. But since we don't want to create, you can use this extend property. Then we learned about zip, where we wanted to for loop the two lists at the same time. So there we can use list, but in zip there is one more thing, that the shortest list will take the priority. That is, the number of element, the shortest length will be the one that will get printed out. So when we use ARR3 using 100 and 200, only 2 elements will get printed, even though the one list has 6 elements in it. Then we learn about list comprehension. List comprehension is a one-line functionality of running for loop and if else to form a list. So you can use for loop to form a list, like here we took a range of and we put the square here, but we can do more easily using a list comprehension. And in the list comprehension, we even can use if and else clause. So if you wanted to if clause, then you can put directly behind the for loop, but if you also wanted to include an else clause, just put it in front of the for loop. So that was it for now. So now let's put this to GitHub. So let's see what are the changes we did. Git status, we created a new file, so we'll do git add 06, yes, git commit -m more about lists. Now let's push it. Git push origin main. So this should take us to the list. Now if you go there, so you should see more on list, and we have all the functionality here. So that was it for today. I hope you understood something new. So if you're liking this list, you can just save the playlist in your library, and if you're facing any difficulty, just put it in the comment. I'll try to solve them, each and one of them. So that was it for today. In the next class, we'll learn about tuple, set, and dictionary. So if you wanted to continue, join back in the next class. So that was it for today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next.